Ownership is one of the best gifts that you can give yourself. If you can give yourself the gift of ownership every single day for all of the things that are not working, you also gift yourself the ability to do something to change them. What is going on, my beautiful people? Welcome to another episode of the Pivot Mindset Podcast. My name is Justin. I'm your host. Man, you might be like, dude, where you at? I'm hanging out. We got some new scenery today. Mixing things up a little bit. I'm hanging out in my living room today. So just mixing things up, man. Just keeping the background fresh. If you just haven't not seeing this on video right now, maybe you're listening to this on Apple Music or Spotify. While you're listening to it there, make sure that you give this podcast a rating and review. It's really the only way that we get the message out of this podcast. It's the way that we keep this thing going. Really, you sponsor the podcast. Like, your views and you rocking with the podcast is the reason why this podcast continues to go on. So thank you for listening. Thank you for checking this out. I hope that it is adding value into your life. We believe here that life is all about the pivots, and those who decide to make the pivots decide to become successful. Episode 85. We're headed to I don't know. I think 85 is a important milestone in the podcast, I guess. Every episode that we produce, I'm like, man, I can't believe we're at this episode. Man, I can't believe we're at that episode. So, so let's dive into this topic, man. This topic is, I think, fundamentally one of the most important topics that has ever been shared on this podcast. I think this topic has the ability to change somebody's life significantly. And if you lean into this, I'm hoping that it gives you some kind of value, right? Like, my goal is that this information, that what I talk about in this podcast, gives you some kind of value. And that is leadership, okay? I want to talk in this episode about leadership. One of the biggest aspects of pivoting your mind, changing your mindset, changing all the things that maybe you don't like in your life is becoming a better leader. I have probably in the last 6 to 8 months of my life have been leaning more on leadership and leadership development, probably not ever have in any one time of my life. Many of you know that we moved to Charlotte, North Carolina, I think around 9 months ago now. And since being here, we've been very involved into our church, and I'm even on staff at our church. And so much about our church culture is leadership and developing leaders and becoming a leader. And so it's forced me to look at leadership in a way that I maybe have never looked at it before. And even in a way that I have had to evolve and grow. Now, get this. This is from the person who has read so many self-help books, have read so many leadership books. And all those books have been valuable. They've all been really cool. It's helped me in my journey. But I feel like I've become a much different and a better leader than I ever have before. And in this episode, I want to talk about really the things that I've done in my life that has helped me to become a leader. Before I get into the things that I've done, I want to talk about how and why I think this is so important. Because truly, anything that you want to accomplish in your life, I think it all settles and boils down to your ability to lead. I think that you as a leader is one of the biggest signs, one of the biggest marks of anything that you want to accomplish. If you give me a big accomplishment and you give me a great leader, I'm super confident that the person is going to be able to accomplish it. If you give me a huge goal and a terrible leader, I have a very slim confidence, right, that person is going to be able to accomplish it. And so, man, I've just come to the fact that everything really boils down to leadership. If I don't like where my marriage is headed, if I think my marriage sucks, it's probably because I have not been a good leader as a man, or just in general. If I think that my team at work isn't doing well and performing well, it's probably because I'm not a great leader. If I don't like the trajectory of my family or where my family's headed, 9 times out of 10, I can bet you that it's because you are not a great leader, or you can find leadership things that you can improve. I promise you that if your money is not where you want it to be, I can guarantee you that there's an area in your life that your leadership needs to improve. If you want to build a better relationship with your kids, I can guarantee you that if I talk about leadership, that there's an area of leadership that you can improve that can help you become a better parent. And so every area of life, as we look at it, it can help you refine and become a better leader. And if you improve your leadership abilities everything that you're connected to, everything that you touch improves. All right. And so I think just leadership is really important. I just wanted to prove that. I wanted to give you some reasons why I think leadership and pouring into yourself as a leader is so, so, so important. I just think, again, that everything in life gets better as you become a better leader. And so quick tangent. I've got this cool plant. I know it's hard to, it's distracting because I didn't address it, but I feel like I need to address it. This is actually my favorite plant. This is called most people call it a Swiss cheese plant because of the leaves. But it's my favorite plant, and I got to lead this plant, right? I gotta put this plant in a position to win. It's leadership, right? Literally everything boils down to leadership. So literally every single thing you're going to do is going to boil down to leadership. So in this episode, I want to talk about some things that I have done to become a better leader. Now, my hope is that you get value from this and that you can incorporate some of these into your life, into your leadership to get better results, accomplish what you want to accomplish, be happier, be healthier. It's all that kind of stuff, right? So the first thing that I wrote down is, and I'm going to be talking about 5 in this episode, is to increase self-awareness. I think that one of the most important things that you can do to become a better leader is to increase your self-awareness. You've really got to know what kind of energy you're giving off. You really have to know what kind of space I believe you're taking up in this world. If you don't have good self-awareness, I believe it's really hard to become a good leader. It's really hard to even know what pitfalls or what challenges you have if you don't have good self-awareness. I think that self-awareness is, and it was the first thing that came to my mind because when I think about leadership, it is leading people. And it's very people driven, right? It's hard to be a leader if you don't have any followers. So if you think through that lens as a leader, and if you're leading people, you've got to know that people have feelings, people have emotions. And the biggest challenge of leading people is they're people, right? They're not robots. They don't just do whatever you say, whenever you say it, however often you say it. They have things you got to process through. And so you've got to become self-aware about the kinds of people and how you make them feel and the kind of people that you attract. Here's the thing that listen, y'all. I think that the people that and I'm using these words intentionally, the people that you attract in your life is based on who you become. And so, man, anytime I talk to somebody and they're like, man, I got these people and, I don't like them, or they got this drama, or they got these problems going on and all this is happening, I can bet you, and if you're really honest, it's you. Right? It's you. It's you're not aware enough to know that there's something in you that's attracting that. Man, I don't like that I got gossipers around me, or people that are they might people that aren't generous, or people that lie, or people that steal, or people that cheat, or people that maybe there's people around you that have poor character, and I can guarantee you that there's something about your character that is not strong that's attracting that level of people. So you got to become a self-aware person. I think one of the biggest places and the biggest opportunities for leaders, number one, is to become self-aware. What could you do to lean into becoming more aware of self? I think the best thing you could do is ask for feedback. To become more aware of yourself, I think the best thing you could do is ask the people around you, ask your spouse, ask your parents, ask your mother, brother, sister, cousin, uncle, ask the people around you what they think about you. Like, be honest, and like, how I am, what does my energy give off? All those kind of things, like, it can help you shape up your level of awareness. I think if more people became self-aware, that the world would be a much better place. All right. So I think to become a better leader, you've got to increase your self-awareness. This is something that I had to do because how you act and how you show up affects how other people act and how other people show up. Okay. So that's number one. Number two is you've got to look at your results in your life. If you are struggling with leadership, or you're struggling in any area of your life, I should say, you have to look at the results that you're having. If you look at the results and you're not satisfied with the results that you have, there is a part of your life that can be developed from a leadership perspective. If there is anything in my life, right? Like I'm kind of I don't want to say, I guess it's a new fitness journey. I've been working out for probably the last 3-4 years, 4 to 5 times a week now. And I have done different kinds of workouts, different kinds of food, meal plans, all that kind of stuff. But I had to look at myself and I was like, man, I'm still not hitting the goals that I desire. And I had to look at myself and I say, man, if I don't like this result, I have to make a different decision. What I can't do is I can't be insane, which is doing the same thing, expecting a different result. And so I had to look at the results, and then I had to lead myself to make a better decision. And so leadership is that's the true pinnacle of leadership, is being able to look at areas in your life and determine what areas you don't like, what areas you do like, and the ones that you want to improve on. You got to realize like that is leadership, and you have to be able to lead yourself in that way. And so I think one of the biggest pieces of leading others is first leading yourself. And you've got to look at the results. And if you look at every area in your life that's not working or that you don't like, you can all boil down to a level of leadership that you have not yet attained. Everything, discipline, self-care, all these things come down to leadership, like your ability to lead yourself, your ability to lead others. Okay. So that's number 2. Number 3 is something that it's hard to do. It's a hard pill to swallow, I should say. But if you do it, it has so many lasting results that are attached to it. And that is taking ownership for everything. This is a concept I heard a couple years ago. And ever since I heard it, I've intentionally have tried to be strategic about taking ownership, because ownership is one of the biggest gifts that you can give yourself. I'm gonna repeat that again. Ownership is one of the best gifts that you can give yourself. If you can give yourself the gift of ownership every single day for all of the things that are not working, you also gift yourself the ability to do something to change them. There's nothing worse than somebody who is in a life that they feel like they didn't control, and they feel like there is no way that they can get out of it. And the truth is, you always have an option. You always have something that you can be doing to shift, change, adjust your life and move things forward. And so you got to take ownership. You cannot point fingers at other people. If you want to be a good leader, if you want to develop your leadership, you have to take ownership. The leader is the person that says, hey, the buck stops here. Like, I take ownership for everything. And so you got to be that's a level of maturation that it takes to really develop yourself from an ownership perspective. But if you own the outcomes, not taking them as, man, I'm going to beat myself up if I don't have the outcome, or not that you just, get down on yourself and get in the dumps and get poor, like, not saying that. What I'm saying is there is a level of ownership that is extremely empowering, because now you realize that you are in control and you have the ability to change and move something forward. All right. And so that's something that's also helped me, is taking ownership for all things, man. Like, that's been huge in my life to becoming a better leader, is taking ownership. Here's the 4th one. The 4th one is becoming a master of conversations. The 4th one, and these aren't in any sequential order, but if I had to rank them on the level of priority, or the level for me of significance that had resulted in the biggest improvement of my leadership, was becoming a master of conversations. I can't say that I'm a master yet, but I'm saying that mastering conversations and being able to have really tough conversations, but it's more than just the tough conversations, but being able to master conversations. So much of leadership is, again, I talked about it a little bit earlier, but so much of leadership is about people. It's about developing people. It's about leading and taking people places, having a desirable location that you can take somebody, that you can help lead somebody to. And a big part of that is being able to master and be a master of conversations. I found that, right? Like, that is really our number one communication source. So to be a good leader, you've got to be a good communicator. It's hard to be a leader, to lead, and you can't communicate, and you can't voice what you're feeling, how you're feeling, and not just voicing it, but positioning it and saying it in a way that can be received, that can be taken, that can be put into practice by the person that you're talking to. And so you got to know that life isn't, like, for me personally, I was born and raised playing football, and I've been playing football since the age of 7, and I stopped playing in college. And I was raised predominantly, or I grew up predominantly around men who were strong-willed, They vocalize their opinions and their thoughts very clearly. Sometimes they cut you out. They got mad at you. You missed the play. You dropped the ball. You did something wrong. You got cussed out for it. And you had to learn how to just like let that roll off of you and just keep playing, keep pushing. I realized that not everybody had that upbringing. So when it comes to effective communication, if you're not built that way, it's just not an effective communication strategy for you. And so you've got to know that everybody doesn't have the same way, the same communication style. They don't perceive or receive information the same way. So I think as a leader, you got to know what kinds of conversations actually drive results that you're looking for. And so I can't, for example, speak to my wife with a very aggressive, demeaning, what did you do? Why can't you believe you messed up? Oh, you piece of, I can't talk to my wife crazy like that because that's not how she receives it. She's going to get mad or she's going to shut down or it's going to frustrate her. Versus I got other people in my life that men that also typically played sports that I could talk to like that it would push them and it would drive results and it would kind of fire them up and challenge them up to go forward. But the piece is you've got to be aware and you've got to know how to master those kinds of conversations. You've got to master the conversations of all the hard ones, right? Like how to tell somebody that they're not doing well, how to tell somebody that they're not crushing it, how to tell somebody that this isn't the right role for them, how to tell somebody that, hey man, you think you're doing well, but you're not, or that, hey man, like you got to look better at this, or like to have some of the hard conversations. It takes a master. It takes somebody who can be intentional about the adverse and the uncomfortable conversations. But not only I think is it the uncomfortable conversations, but even the conversations of, hey, I'm going to acknowledge that you did well. I'm going to acknowledge that you're crushing it. I'm going to acknowledge that what you did with that project or what you did with that event or whoever you're leading. Also being able to acknowledge them in the empowering things, right? So it's not just having the hard conversations, but I think sometimes the other backswing of leadership is to be able to encourage and empower people when they do well and clap for them when they're doing well. So, but I do think for me, the biggest thing that has changed in my leadership probably in the last 8 months or so has been my ability to have conversations and even have the tough conversations. Now to the point where I just kind of like lean into the tough conversations. When there's a tough conversation that needs to be had, I just lean into it now because on the other end of all the tough conversations that I've had has been significant transformation. Anything that I've wanted to get done, 9 times out of 10, it didn't get the kind of traction or progress that it should have because there was a hard conversation that I hadn't had that I needed to have. And once I had the hard conversation, everything moved at the pace that I knew it could. And so if there's ever any like tingling or feeling like, man, I feel like I need to talk to this person about, just know how to have the hard conversations. And here's the 5th one. We're getting ready to land the plane here. But the 5th one is being worth following. Have a life people can follow. Not can, but have a life that people desire to follow. One of the worst things I think you can do as a leader is not be someone that's worth following. Now, in the Levels of Leadership book by John Maxwell, he talks about the 5 levels of leadership. And the first leadership position is position. So that is somebody who is leading because they're in a position to lead, not because they've gained influence or they've got, it's not because of anything like that. It's not because of their results. It's because, hey, you were placed in this because you were hired to be in this role. That is the lowest level of leadership. The lowest level of leadership is the title of leadership. That is the worst level. And so to be really an effective leader, to charge and to challenge and to grow people and to develop organizations, to move people forward, is you've got to have something worth like desiring, right? Like, so, and to me, that's like literal life, so it's much easier for someone who has the results to follow. It's much easier to follow that person. If you're saying that, hey, I want to help people get fit and you're not fit, you're going to have a hard time leading people getting fit. If you're saying, hey man, I want to help people get better with their money and you don't have significant money results in your life, that's going to be really hard. If you're saying, man, I want to help people get better in their marriage and your marriage sucks, it's going to be very challenging leading people there. And so you got to have something worth following. You got to have a life worth following. You've got to have something that when somebody looks at it, they're like, man, I actually like that. Like, I desire that. Man, I wish I could hang out with that guy. I wish I can get more information from them. I wish I could glean from them, right? And so it's a really effective way that you when you lead with your life, you lead without leading, right? Your life speaks way louder than any words, any conversation you could ever have. And so the conversations that we talked about at 4, they really are just backdrops to the life that you're already leading. And so now I'm able to have the tough conversations because I'm having them from a place of authority, and I'm having them from a place of results versus a place of, I'm just calling out something that I do myself. So you gotta be having something worth, like, desirable. You gotta have something worth living, that somebody would see your life, see your results, and they're like, yep, I'd love to have that kind of life. I'd love to have those kind of results. Right. And so, man, my life, like I said, it's just growing. I'm growing. This podcast is growing. And one of the biggest pieces, like I said, I wanted to really, really hone in on this leadership conversation, and just talk about really the things that I've started to implement in my life that has helped me significantly. I may talk about this topic in the next 6 months or another year, and all the things could change. I'm not sure, but I'm just giving you, as it's coming to me, as I'm growing, as I'm becoming a better leader, the things that I'm implementing in my life that has helped me to lead others, to help me to become a better husband, a better spouse, a better leader at work, a better leader at my business, my company, a better leader in my family. Like, all these things I've started to put into practice to help me become better at my leadership. Okay. So, man, that's all I have for you in this episode. Remember, continue to give this podcast a rating and review. We really appreciate it. And let me know if you like this setup. Like I said, I'm in my living room hanging out. I'm going to be mixing up some stuff, trying to get out of office, kind of mixing up a little bit. We're going to be start having some guests on too. So we're going to be doing some guest interviews in the living room and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, man. But again, we believe here all about the pivot, and those who decide to make the pivots decide to become successful. I'll see you in the next episode. Peace.